Mic check, check.
Hello?
Hello, Caleb. Hi, Dems.
Good to see you, Caleb. Dems.
Hi, Dems. We can
You're
hear each other.
somewhere in your mute channel, Dems. I can see you speaking, but not hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
There's something
This
wrong
is
with the host.
This is a new space I haven't seen before.
Oh yeah, so this is my standing desk, and that's my backyard.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No.
Hey Ben.
Adolfo.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hi Adolfo.
Hello, everyone.
Eddie or Ben, can one of you run the meeting? I might have to step out. I can't hear you, Ben.
Arno asked if I could. Yeah,
Okay.
I should be able to, hopefully. Looks like the web client's struggling a little bit, but it's fine.
Okay. Let me make you host.
Whoa. Okay, that's better. Puppy. Okay, so let's see if the doc will load.
I
think
fixed my issue.
The meeting auto-recorded when we came in, so we might want to stop that and start over.
Yep.
Do we have someone that can take notes? Anyone?
I can take notes.
Great.
All right. Bring them up.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to today's SIG K8s Infra meeting. This meeting is under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which is essentially be excellent to each other. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. Welcome everyone. I believe the first thing we have up is the billing report. And I'm going to see if I can present that. I think I can't from the web client. Is anyone up for presenting the billing report? Sorry, this is pretty last minute. I usually switch machines when I'm going to be hosting.
I can share my screen.
Let me make co-host. Okay, you should be able to now.
And I'm sharing my whole desktop, I think, somewhere. A second to... All right, go ahead.
Yep, we can see it. Okay. I believe that's up versus last time by a bit. You want to flip through the next page, Chippy?
Momentary load. It's a lot of data. There's always a drop when I see it from New Zealand because it's the 16th here, 17th. So did Cloud DNS increase in cost to 1,500 around the 1st of February? That's a new one.
I'm only seeing the first page of the billing report.
Yeah, we're still
Page
seeing the
2
first
is
page,
what
Chippy.
should be seeing right now. Did that not work?
So I see your screen, but it's still on the first page.
Right, stop. Share again. Desktop 5. I'll even specifically share that daily spend tab. So let me know if it can be seen.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. So up previously, DNS has been hardly no cost at all. And maybe that's CDN that I'm seeing. Cloud CDN went to 50.
It's not cloud DNS, it's cloud CDN. I
Yeah, I just noticed
activate. Yeah, I'm doing some experiment with cloud CDN, so it should be fine for these milestones. So we basically get this is the cost of the new services for until end of March. So I'm trying to investigate how we can optimize some costs related to different bucket we have right now, especially those used by CAPS. So it's like a little experiment. It's not costing in terms of budget. So we should be fine.
So what did you put in Cloud CDN? Like binaries or?
Yeah, the binary is generated by CAPS.
Oh, awesome.
I also need to investigate exactly. I have to wait the end of February to basically get basically the full report on that, because Google and GCP don't generate the different line of budget for services until the end of the month. So I have to wait end of February to do the investigation. So I'm doing this experiment for 2 months, and I will make a final decision about that in end of March.
Compute engine dropped quite a bit daily by about 1,500, about the same what we increased. We traded it. I wonder if that's new.
Yeah, it's a little misleading, because basically we have a newer cost related to Google CDN, and at the same time we reduce the cost related to the load balancing service serving COPS artifact. So
Right.
I'm trying to understand if we can save more of that over different manipulation inside Google CDN, or we can basically say, okay, we stop using load balancer, we only focus on using a Google CDN or another one.
Yeah, it's a noticeable drop. Hopefully that'll stick.
So that, like I said, it's like an experiment that basically don't cost us something. I will see what's happening.
Not much after that, I think. Setting 8K for cloud storage. So far, so good. All right, where's the report? Turn it back over to Ben.
Thank you. Okay, Hippie, you want to go with your first topic there?
Sure, just 1 second. I was trying to get the report up. And I'll reshare my screen now that that's what's mainly on there. Desktop 5. Let me know if this isn't working. So a lot of our focus is trying to get our artifacts up and running. We've been trying to figure out how to work together well to get that across. We were able to push this forward with some Terraform, but I'm trying to figure out how we go forward from here, whether we put some automation in place or whether we do like we did early with DNS, you assign a few people and they're the ones to, I think I didn't click share. Go back. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Awesome. So we've been coordinated a bit with. I've been out for about a week, so I'm just now catching up to working with Ben to get some redirection working based on some of the code we've had in various places before, and now the the SIG release engineering team is loading to push to a bucket. But I was wondering if we've had a discussion on what, how are we doing on that, and what do we want to look for in this. And providing the infrastructure there. Arnaud?
Yeah, I think for the moment we should basically leave Adolfo trying to understand how we can safely push the image layer of the containers to the S3 bucket Caleb is creating right now. Once we have confirmation about that, we can basically understand the infrastructure requirement and move forward to do some kind of production about how we want to do. So I think the only comment is basically respect Markdown format if Caleb is okay to doing that. And we give access to Adolfo and basically the release engineering team, they work on pushing image layer and we can talk about the next step. Because they're also concerned about, I don't know how cosine is working. So I also have concern about if we sign a container images, are we also signing the layers, every layers, which means we need to make sure those image layers are signed before we push them to S3?
It shouldn't be.
Okay. Oh.
It's a signature against the image. And the signature is published itself as an OCR artifact. It just looks like another image to copy over.
Okay, so we don't need to attach some kind of signature to the image layer. We just push it and
yeah. To a naive tool, SigStore image like signatures just look like another specially named image that's alongside the main image.
Okay.
That way it's compatible with all registries. So basically, if we can handle images, we can handle the signed signatures.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I can add a little bit about what we're planning to do just now. So currently we are undergoing a rewriting parts of the image promoter as part of the signing effort. So the first rewrite that we did really puts us in a much better place to add the step to start copying artifacts to the bucket or whatever we decided them to be. So my first idea was first ensuring that we have a bucket where once the end-to-end tests of the promoter run, we make sure that so whenever the end-to-end tests of the promoter run, they do like a full image promotion, fake image promotion within the tests. So the idea would be to, once that image promotion inside of the tests takes place, we also ensure that the artifacts get copied to the test bucket in AWS. So once we have that running, we can simply add another destination and make sure that I'm planning to add the configuration. So currently in the image promoter manifests, you specified a source bucket or source registry where the images are copied from, and a destination registry where they are promoted to. My idea was to add maybe one or more destinations of S3 compatible buckets where once we do the promotion, if we find those in there, we'll also copy the blobs to those S3 buckets. And so the idea would be first to just run that new code inside of the tests. And if it works and it proves to be like, doesn't add too much overhead or problems or whatever to the promotion, which I don't expect them to, we can start adding the configuration to the actual promotion, maybe in one of the 124 betas that are coming soon, and test those there. Unless anyone has another idea, which is of course welcome.
Thank you for looking at and working on this.
I mean, happy to, but since I'm already in the guts of the image promoter, like, happy to add new features once I'm there.
Is this PR that we're putting forward here for this Terraform to run providing enough infrastructure and an understanding of what our redirector is going to point to? Because when we've talked earlier, and again, I've been out for a week, that we weren't going to implement push.
Well, the only comment in that PR is just basically choose Markdown over. I don't remember the extension.
Org, yeah, sorry, I was trying to.
I did a quick check. I don't really see a blocker in that pull request except just using Markdown, and the PR is already approved by me and team, so we can just merge that today and give access to the release admin, and they can basically start poke around.
I'm updating the PR as we speak.
Okay.
I was wondering about access to the I forget what the email address was, but it's the K8s Infra AWS root account, the one that I provisioned with Terraform the other day.
And you don't need that account. You just basically need to create individual user account for every release admin. I mean, when I put the list of the email lists you can basically, or you just ping them on Slack. You say, oh, I need H1, an email address. I can give you access to that account.
The issue is I'm unable to run my Terraform that I'm working on.
Against, oh, you want to create the,
Yeah,
okay, I see. Because my understanding is you were supposed to create a separate account for that bucket. That's why I thought, sorry. So if is it possible, or do we want to use the account you basically create when I made the request against K8s funding?
Part of it is, and that's kind of flowing into the next topic, is we're trying to structure the way that we're supporting the Kubernetes community and the way that we're migrating away from Google and setting up registries and everything. This is something that the next project is already lined up for Knative for us to start doing that. And in these initial high-level steps of creating pardon the root levels we've been using as the term, if that's not accurate or not, but creating an OU and putting an account in there and trying to figure out the balance between how the CNCF can support that and help to export some of the expertise and workflows and things that we've done within the K8s Infra working group into Knative and beyond into the other groups. And so in this case, when we've created this root account, we don't have access to that yet. And that may be what we're needing to understand how to, that's just for the people on that mailing list, right? So Caleb, in needing to run the Terraform, is my thing, doesn't have access to run that Terraform for the stuff within that account. And that may be a lack of understanding on our part.
Okay, so you are a organizational admin, right?
Yep.
So basically the best approach to be able to really organize what you are trying to do is have one OU dedicated to Kubernetes and have different sub accounts. So we can basically break down the costs based on what we are doing. Right now, we create an account and we use that from some experiment under one organizational unit.
Right.
And you can create a new account in the same organizational unit and basically say, okay, we give that to SIG release, they do the tests to whatever they want to do about it, and that help basically define the cost of development. Because if we basically want to put that inside the same account, and we trying to understand later what costs us to do all those experiments, is going to be difficult because we don't tag resources. So in the Amazon cost Explorer, it's going to be difficult to really break down every cost you need to justify to CNCF and Amazon. So the best approach right now, and that's my suggestion, is basically create one organizational unit for Kubernetes and multiple sub accounts, and you can do whatever you want about those accounts.
Is there, as far as the spend and visibility into seeing the different components, I'm trying to figure out how to provide things like the K8s.io repo, where we have the Terraform for managing the Kubernetes, the K8s Infra working group work. And then we're going to put new ones for SIGs, and it gets a bit complicated. And I'd like to model, I think we could model for these other groups as we replicate out, how do we have some transparency and a bit of centralization on a per CNCF project basis. Where do we find out how they're using, in this case, Amazon, but how are we effectively using the credits so that we can use that same process and lift it up and go, well, here's where we go and take on all the beautiful work that SIG K8s Infra has done and reapply it to SIG Knative Infra.
If we want to do that, are you talking about Knative migration from Google to CNCF?
That's what the whole document in the next topic's about.
Oh,
this is not that we need to go tackle that, but I'm just, we're going to have more and more groups doing very similar things. And I'd love to be able to point to the Kubernetes case study repo and say, look at the infra folder. Here's the way that community is able to come together and make these solutions, and maybe even writing about how we're doing that. Because
okay, this is a separate. Can we?
It is separate.
Let's. Okay, I understand now. So for this, for Adolfo, let's just create. Caleb, if you can just create in your Amazon account and give access to Adolfo and run that Terraform script, it will be great. I can basically approve anything you need for that today. And for AP, I think the subject is about infrastructure management, because if you want to replicate what Kubernetes is doing, it's gonna be complicated, because we started with some organization with Bash and we're trying to migrate with Terraform. So
it's more
if you
of
want to
how
build it
as a SIG K8s Infra, and how we organize and do our infrastructure from here going forward, trying to set an example and something that can be collaborated on, so that maybe there's innovations in the way that Knative is doing it that we can bring back in, if we'll have something similar to the KXO repository, where we have, you know, if we're going for Terraform, let's go for Terraform. We do have the stuff that we're migrating from, but it's more of where does the approval process and the culture of where do the keys lie, and where's the authorization and automation for publicly and transparently as a community running the infrastructure. And that's where I'm trying to, we can have that conversation later, and I don't mind creating one, but if we go off and now we find this irrevocable way where we can't, because right now we're still talking about creating temporary things to try stuff, but as soon as we start, usually when we try that, it'll stick forever. So I'm trying to plan right now before we dig too deep. How do we make sure that there is a place where everything done within our community goes through PRs and shows up in
I think it's difficult to answer to that question, because not everyone has the same vision about infrastructure. Like if you want to, I mean, if Knative want, for example, use Crossplane for infrastructure management, they just can basically use what we're doing right now. You know, because Crossplane has a different way to manage cloud resources. That's what example, like, if we basically say, I mean, if you want to copy something from us, it's about policy, it's about treating, it's about be transparent, do infrastructure as code, and have an approval process. And those three things, I basically the foundation of the Kubernetes community. How you implement that, it's up to each different, I would say, community group. You should not say, oh, we do Bash and Terraform, you should also do that. We should basically say, okay, we are transparent about how we manage infrastructure. We use tooling to declare infrastructure, and we have an audit process, and we have audit trails. That's what you should say to different CNCF group. Now, how we manage that can change over time. I think last time Justin talked about basically move from Terraform Bash to use a custom Kubernetes controller inside the GK cluster to manage everything and to have end-to-end test against cloud provider resources, which means the approach we have now may change over time, and things will not stick forever. I'm not sure if I'm clear. Or...
I know that we're going to evolve, and there's going to be different. I think I saw some chats. Make sure I pull those up.
So I think if we want to copy what we did over time, it's about basically have principle and policy about how you want to operate infrastructure. That's the main thing you should care about. Now, the technical implementation can be different, because we don't have the same way to, I mean, we don't have the same needs. every community group don't have the same need as K8s Infra. Like I will say an example. We used to build custom tooling to manage Google Group, but another community can basically say, oh, let's use the Terraform provider for Google Groups and manage that. Or let's use the Terraform provider for GitHub to manage user and groups. It's basically one approach. It's a tactical implementation about one principle: have infrastructure code to manage user groups or cloud resources.
I guess some of it is that we have a lot of automation that we've written that is solving some more generic problems.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about Google Group management, or we're talking about the solution we're coming up with for a registry that's distributed. And these are issues that are going to be similar for other groups. And so, if you will, try and in my position.
There's multiple.
And are you? Sorry, I saw his green light going. I don't know if he was wanting to speak.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe we can take any additional discussion of this document offline.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
I'm not sure. I feel like we're kind of just back and forth here. Maybe we want to take a look at the code search PR.
Just before we do, in regards to the access to that root account, would you mind helping me to understand one more time what you're saying, Arno?
I say you don't, basically the account you create for the request I made, you don't need to use that account. You just have to create a new one and give access to Adolfo.
Am I hearing you say create another AWS root account and then you provide that root account access into the OU?
Yep.
Okay.
So a completely separate different account. You don't even give access to me. You just give access to Adolfo and the release engineering team.
Yeah,
So,
and more than personal access, if I could ask that perhaps the credentials for that one could be, maybe we could later, I mean, we don't have to decide this right now because I don't have the accounts and everything, but perhaps we could store those in the secret manager or something like that.
SIG release got access to one password vault, so you basically can do whatever you want about this. That's why I'm saying
Okay.
you should be, SIG release should be independent about access to Amazon and do experiment. You don't have to, we don't have to share the same account.
Okay. Sounds good.
And you, as I think Caleb, as an org admin, you can do everything you want about billing and basically permission.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
I will add a comment in the pull request and trying to re-explain what I'm saying.
Okay.
Code search, mostly just looking for approval on that one. I know Arno, I made the updates that you requested for. Is there anything else you want to go over on that?
Let me do the approval and merge it.
Okay, appreciate that.
Well, that was quick. Okay, Arno, do you want to talk about stressing registry sandbox?
Yeah, I just opened an issue on OCI proxy repo. So we have the OCI registry, OCI proxy deploy inside Cloud Run over to GCP region right now. We have we have traffic coming from Amazon to that, and we have also traffic coming from GCP to that. So now I'm trying to basically get a way to do it, to stress it, like be able to understand how we can get some kind of confidence in what we're building with this proxy, and see how we can basically go to production with that. So I'll just open the issue and basically see if anyone have a way of basically feedback or know how to we can do some kind of stress test. I think, Ben, you may have some idea about this.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything super useful to share here other than like, I mean, we should probably run some synthetic tests in addition. But just getting some of our actual test workloads up should give us a pretty good idea. I think the more of what I'm looking for there is just we need to talk to each project that we want to start switching over to pointing their users through the like production one when we stand that up, and find out like at what point are they going to feel confident that this is reliable enough, just the redirect, to start shifting traffic to the new endpoint so that we can later roll over mirroring. I think a lot of projects are going to be fine with just our test workload. I could see where like someone else might expect like some heavier stress testing first. I think it should be pretty fine though. Like it's a very small, very easy to understand binary, and like I think Cloud Run scaling is fairly straightforward. But I think we should have that in our back pocket in case you know, folks aren't confident enough in just running our test workloads against it. We have some pretty large test workloads.
So
like running a 5K node scale test at it is a pretty good stress test.
okay, what basically Ben saying is basically I had a kind of pro job running basically 5K node against this sandbox registry. I will rephrase my question differently. How are we? What's the criteria that basically decide we are ready to go in production? Because I feel like, yeah, if we can do some stress tests, we can basically decide, oh, we are ready to go in production. We have some metrics to help us, that can help us basically get a sense of how the proxies behave under full traffic.
I think we're basically ready for that part. The more interesting part is going to be when we're confident to switch over to the like not just plain redirect, but that is also like a little bit less concerning, because if we see any like issues, we can always just redeploy the like pure redirect. Like that's an easy, that's an easier rollback than like the first initial putting up the domain, and we have to make sure we have something behind it that works. But like once we know that just the plain redirect is fine, we can always revert to the plain redirect if we encounter any issues when we start trying to roll out actual mirroring.
Okay, so I can start work on building the infrastructure for the production infrastructure for that, and start to basically talk to the entire Kubernetes community about switching to that proxy. If you tell me, oh, let's go to production, I will go to production. Okay, this is an open question for everyone. Are we going to production with this, or what's blocking?
Sorry, can you say that again?
My question is, are we going in production with the current state of OCI proxy, or If not, what's the blocker?
So
We
one
might-
I had Arno here is, I remember Tim was talking about small reversible steps. Is this something that we can, go back from?
Yes, because if you check the OCI proxy code, it's just a redirect to kgci.io, and that's it. So if we want to revert that, we just basically revert the commit that introduced that change.
So
Okay,
we can start, so like if we have a switch a project to pulling through this / advertising this as their images, which they're still running, publishing through staging, then we can always revert them back to just plain case.gcr.io. Like it's the exact same images, same infrastructure. It's just the redirect in front.
Yeah.
I think the only concern there is if we get to the point where we start releasing like released tag binaries that users are using that default to this registry, that's harder to roll back. And that's why I think it's important that we make sure that we start with just like pure redirect. It's like the simplest thing we can serve, so that whenever we do any future steps, even if we can't get clients to switch off of that endpoint, we can switch that endpoint back to just the plain redirect.
I like that idea, Ben.
So we've actually left the code as just the plain redirect so far. I have some work pending to like do more, but we'll make sure that we have like a published tagged image that we can just switch back to that one if we run into any issues once we feel confident to switch out the mirroring. The only thing we're looking for now is just like, do we expect to hit some kind of like weird scaling issue with Cloud Run or something like that? Or is there some like crazy bug in Go or the code or something like that? I'm not expecting anything like that. But given the amount of traffic we'd see if we actually switched over everyone right now, we'd still want a little bit more confidence, even if it is in theory so simple. So we've just started moving some of our test like UDB test workloads to try out the sandbox domain. But pretty soon we want to stand up a like, this is our intended permanent domain and start actually moving things to that.
Even if we switch test workload, it's gonna be enough to get confidence, because basically we cache all the requests. So even if we switch the entire, let's say, test infra to that, we still not have enough, basically a real picture of what we need to deal with, because we basically, Cloud Run is caching all the requests. Not Cloud Run, basically the load balancer we're using cache all the requests coming from internet.
Okay, so can we just write this down exactly what we'll be trying, and so we can all give a thumbs up. And from what I heard so far, it is we'll have the pure redirect image created, and we'll try to switch one specific CI job to go against images using this proxy, and then monitor that.
So we actually already
it's
have
already
that.
done. We
Okay.
already did that.
We just worked directly with the owners of the tests.
So we switch cops, basically the cops job for distribution, for variant distribution, and we you also switch a SIG scalability job.
Okay, so what can we try next? Would it be taking something in the pre-submit?
Yeah,
because that will give you the largest volume.
That's my intent for the next phase. The thing I'm struggling with is the code base of KK report to do that.
We don't need to change the code in the KK repository to do that. I think we can just change the where we pull images from is configurable.
Okay.
So I think I'll show you where that is. So anything in the E2E test, especially conformance, all of them, you can point it to another repository.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
You know that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it may be a little awkward to plumb through in CI, just with all the layers we have. But we should be able to. It's possible to override the E2E tests to use a
Correct.
different registry.
Yeah. So we might need to change a Python or a bash in the middle to squeeze it in, but we don't have to change the code in E2E. In KK is what I'm saying.
okay, I'm happy to about some guidance, because I tried to understand some of the E2N conformance tests. It was not easy to get into
Yeah.
it.
I'll help you with that.
Okay,
we
thank
can
you.
do that together or no. We'll pull in Ben if you need it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think honestly we're probably more or less at the point where we can start setting up the infra for like the prod quote unquote domain. But like, and we should consider running the tests through that version and leaving the registry sandbox endpoint as a place where we can start iterating with lesser workloads. Just not changing anything that we're actually going to release yet, but probably pretty soon. I really don't expect us to have any issues with this. We should just make sure that we take steps. We should also probably open an issue and like K8s.io or somewhere so that we have somewhere tracking this written down. I don't think we have one currently.
Exactly. That's yeah. So each step before, like each step when we do it, we make sure that we document exactly what that step was, and we get some sign-offs from people and do that, right?
Okay.
I have a question about backfilling the images. So has anybody thought about writing something to backfill the bucket with all of the images that are in the release buckets right now?
It's gonna basically you can use GCS util to do that.
Oh, right. Because it's
Yeah.
no, but it's so
They're actually. So GCR is already actually backed by a GCS bucket for all the blob storage. So you can actually just like sync you could just like there are existing tools for like sync buckets. So if we need a one-off sync, we can actually just like run a standard bucket sync.
Okay.
And that should be fine.
It's gonna take 2 days to do that. 2 days and multiple hours to do that.
I think the more interesting thing is how we handle the promoter piece.
Yep. The synchronization from GCS to S3 is not that, it's not really complex. It's just one line command. It's just take times because we have over 19,000 objects we need to synchronize. It takes time to do that, like 3 days to do that. But I mean, the first synchronization we need to take like 2 and 3 days to do that. Then after that, if we succeed to basically implement synchronization with the image promoter, it's going to be fine.
Okay, so now I'm getting a little bit hassled because there's so many possibilities and so many options that are there. So can we please write down in a Google Doc, this is the current step, and here is the next step, and the one after. So, and then we can put some dates on it, and then we can get some sign-offs, and we can try doing things in the, like switch things on a Friday and come back on Monday and see how it has gone. So let's do a proper plan. I'm not saying that we need a cap, but at least let's write this down, because a lot of information, Arno, is in your head for sure. So
no.
we need to get it written down so all of us are on the same page.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. We had some of this in the like initial doc discussing doing the mirror, but we should split out in more detail.
Exactly.
Lots
So
of us
anybody
that want to
looking
help,
can
but we need to
look
know
at the
where.
calendar and say, okay, this is the stage we are in right now.
I will try to write something very simple.
Even if it is like checkboxes in an issue in GitHub, that's fine too. Like, but we need something written down, please.
Okay.
One
Yeah,
simple
I
thing
think a living GitHub issue probably actually makes the most sense for this, where we can just track what happened. I don't think we need too much more debate about what to do. We just need to make sure we document it and keep track of what happens.
And while we are doing something, we leave notes for each other there saying,
Yeah.
okay, I did this part, kind of thing. Like, so we don't have to come to this meeting to figure out, okay, what happened last week or the week before.
we have people ready here at I and other places. If we know what's next and we have the capability to do it, this is one of our main jobs is supporting the K8s Infra working group.
Yeah.
And sometimes we find it hard to know.
Right. So Arno, so let's do things in bite-sized pieces, put some dates on it, put some people on it, and do checkboxes and like organize this thing.
Okay, no problem. I think the first thing is really Amazon. Like the first thing we need to deal with is Amazon. Like we should basically.
Well, we are just about to the end of our meeting slot here, at about 10 minutes left. I think we've run through all of our topics. If anyone has any remaining questions or concerns, we can do that. I think otherwise, if you have a topic that didn't make the agenda, we should come back next time. Anyone have anything? Any questions, comments, concerns?
One CI tool that's used in a lot of places is our EDE test suite for conformance and everywhere else. I think if we were to update, and that may be what was talked about earlier, but I just wanted to make sure I am repeating really clearly, an easy win would be to update the registry that tool uses. And if it were to break, we'll quickly see it and the visibility because of the number of places that it's run around the world. It's not just within our infrastructure that particularly when we hit a release, having that binary, the EDE binary pull from that will give us one of our first easy things before we actually shift, like the Kubernetes release, for example, over to it. It's an easy win.
I think we're talking about doing that first with our own workloads without actual code change. But there'll certainly have to be some more discussions about, once we get to the point that we're talking about rolling it out to end users, how exactly we go about that. I really don't think, I think we're going to reach a point where we're confident in it and we just start rolling it out to end users because it's just the redirect and we've soaked it a bit in our workloads. I think the more interesting thing will be rolling out the mirror, but that one at that point we will have push button rollback. So yeah, I think we should go write this down, but I think we can run some pretty large workloads ourselves against this and just make sure that like it does scale and whatnot. And then we just need to look at, what kind of timeline are we ready to start making this the default? And then we can like start, then once we've done that, we'll want to switch test workloads to look at the sandbox version where we're starting to add mirroring and like run through the same process again. But then that time we can be a little bit less scared to roll it out because we can roll back by just switching out what's behind the endpoint without having to push changes to clients.
Yeah, the other thing here also, Ben, is there was a long-standing bug where Containerd was not able to pull from a specific repository. I forget the name, from JFrog. There'll be cases where tools and the CRI runtimes won't be able to deal with the redirects that we have set up. So
That said, I've looked in like major registries depend on like
Yeah.
doing unauthenticated redirects. So the really only concern is if we have like any additional like auth in the flow.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you look at all the problems in the past, they're all related to auth, and we're trying to just do public read. So
yeah, our conformance test does have something where we check sending a bad auth or something like that. So we might hit it, like the sooner we hit it, the better, I think, because then we can figure out like how to get it fixed in the longer term.
right. But I think we should be pretty safe there because, like I said, so we're only serving redirects, and all the actual API implementation is like in existing registries, and the existing registries also depend on this redirect. So it would be an incredibly poorly behaved client if it didn't handle redirects. Like it wouldn't be able to pull from GCR today.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Caleb
I
did a
think we are all set here, right? Sorry, EP, you were saying something.
Caleb did a bit of work on trying to figure out what we could do to use a redirect to successfully get to objects behind ECR, and we didn't find a clean way. Is the really short answer. There's a conversation topic back in the channel. I just want to make sure that's part of the conversation. That's it.
But I think that was an alternative, because the main plan of the design that was to use S3 bucket and mirroring from using the image promotion. ACR was more like an alternative. We can look later if we are confident in what we are building with OCI proxy.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that we know that ECR and other registries at this point, the design, are not part of what we're doing.
Okay, so
around the authentication issues.
Yeah, so for now, let's see what we can do in the next 2 weeks before we meet again. Write that down, Arno, and we'll like ping everybody on the Slack channel, and like get a thumbs up and roll it out. Okay.
So I'm guessing then I'm going to see about when the promotion is done, moving the blobs from the bucket instead of I was thinking about maybe fetching them from the registry, but if they're available in the bucket, I'm going to do like from bucket to bucket, I think.
I think I don't remember. We had a conversation about that. Is basically the image promoter should be basically look over every image, fetch the layers, and try to do the copy using some kind of maybe Go container registry package or crane package to do that.
But from
So
the registry endpoint or directly from the bucket?
From the registry endpoint.
Okay.
Because basically
I think they're both viable and pretty straightforward.
Yep. Because getGCR.io redirects you to the GCS endpoint, which means we can basically choose to use the manifest from an image and try to figure out where those images are stored and push that to S3, or we basically
I think my only argument for considering using the registry API would be so that we've already implemented this in the future. If we switch to like, I'm not sure if artifact registry, for example, is as transparent about the GCS backing or not.
No, if we move to artifact registry, we lost access to the GCS endpoint.
So it might make sense to go ahead and use the registry endpoint, but they're both going to be just like grab the manifest, get the layer list from it, and then fetch and copy the layers.
Okay.
Assuming we don't have the same thing like ECR, some kind of token authentication against artifact registry.
part of the conversation earlier was around the ECR. If we use ECR at all, there is no access to the buckets at all. So anything where we're trying to use the ECR, we have to go directly S3 or bucket to bucket or GCR to buckets.
If we do that, then I think we're just going to be pushing directly to ECR, and we're just going to have to wholesale redirect to ECR depending on the client, and just like try to apply the same mitigations we have on the GCR. So if that winds up being the case, then we'll have even less to do. It will just be updating the promoter to promote to 2 registries, and it'll be the redirector will just be redirecting / to one or the other. It'll be even simpler, and we won't need to concern ourselves with layers.
Yeah,
Exactly. Or we can basically have one token again, basically used by the proxy that basically do the authentication to ECR, like we do with GH proxy. Like not like GH proxy, it's different. But having a token again on OCI proxy is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think my more concern there is that we probably wouldn't want to do that because the additional request in the path. But these, I think we're at the moment we're moving forward with the S3 and possibly CloudFront approach for now. If there's some reason that we can't do that, then like we have a pretty straightforward path to just switching to like purely registry API, copy to both, and redirect the entire path instead of being tricky and selectively redirecting the layers as opposed to the rest of the requests.
Yeah, so from the last meeting we had on release engineering, I think I misunderstood, because I thought that the requirement was going to be if we were going to have other destinations, other mirrors, that they would have to be S3 compatible. So that's why I was thinking about doing them S3, but
we're not trying to solve the problem of having additional ones right now. I mean, in the many years of this project, we've had like 3 providers provide resources, and I don't think we're trying to do packet like bare metal hosting just yet. It's more important that we shift the cost on this more immediately. And if we get to a point where we need to do like more backends, we can like totally rethink everything. Especially because we'll already have clients on a domain that we control that we can point at some new implementation trivially. So I think actually very intentionally my argument is let's not try to solve that problem. Let's not even really think about that problem right now. Let's just focus on AWS plus the existing GCR, making a smooth migration so that we can fix our like majority of our registry pull cost. And then, you know, if we have the happy circumstance that there are more providers, we can look at, okay, how do we scale this out as like a follow-up step that might even involve changing the approach.
okay.
And that won't be a problem to clients, and it won't be a problem to us, because we can do the same thing we did with the current registry, which is like leave it in place until we're ready and just put something else in front behind the K8s.io domain.
Okay, sounds good.
I tried to
I
take notes
do
best
expect
I
we
could.
probably will at some point have some interest in like additional ones, but like we're already exceeding our budget, and the majority of it is the like AWS. So if we can do that more efficiently, then we've got a huge win, and we can scope the problem better.
Okay, so for now, yeah, I was just talking about trying not to rewrite the thing later. So maybe if we set up on everyone has to have an S3 endpoint, that would be a good one. But just let's do some practical thing and in a pragmatic way for this one, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I do think that was one of the considerations, is that if we can make the, you know, the copy layers to an S3 style bucket with public read approach work, then it's going to be really easy to come back and scale it to additional providers. But we shouldn't block on that or focus too much on that.
Okay.
It will also be pretty easy to scale to additional providers if we use the registry endpoint. It just changes our security concerns, trying to make sure that multiple sources of truth are correct and like lockdown. And we're already like extra over paranoid with like the current registry. So it was a little bit harder to convince all the interested parties. Whereas this way we can say, well, you don't actually need to trust the S3 buckets because it's all content addressed.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing we're going to just run into there is making sure that we get it funded and that we can like scale it to handle all the different regions correctly. For AWS, I think that's also a bit easier because it looks like we should be able to detect client region pretty straightforward. I'm not sure how viable that's going to be on like additional providers.
Sounds like a problem to deal with once we get the list providers.
Like once we get further along with this, we might wind up doing something like having an S3 bucket per region or something like that. And then having the redirector point based on client region and having the promoter promote to multiple regions. But like, I think that's a like more targeted, more solvable problem if we run into it. Trying to figure out how that's going to be reproducible on other providers is like, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves on that. And again, I think the biggest thing before we even get to the mirroring is just getting ourselves into a place where we can put things behind a domain we control so that we're free to iterate on exactly how we cost optimize this.
Yeah, and backpedal if we need to.
Right, and just backpedal to like whatever, it's just a redirect to GCR. At least that hopefully isn't costing us much to run since it's just some redirects. We're over time. Thanks everyone for coming and see you next time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.